Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little, and this is your daily TA wrap. Where we take a look at these markets from a neoclassical perspective and ask ourselves, what happened today? And what does it tell us about tomorrow? You know, I do a show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of the beautiful Rocky Mountains. I will not do a show Thursday, Monday the coming week, or Sunday. So as a prelude to tonight's show, I just want to make sure you're aware of that. You can see those details here on TATV. Just pop in there and you'll see we'll be back on next Tuesday. Gonna take a vacation, get away for a little bit, get away from these markets for a little bit, and maybe just in time, as we look in at what happened today. Last night we were thinking we should try to get a bounce. That's exactly what they tried to do, but they couldn't hold it. They gave it all back by the end of the day. The Dow was down 66 3/4, 334.59. S&P's down 4.5, 1697.5. The composite up 3 points, 37.68. The NDX flat, 32.19 or 32.18.5. And the Russell actually tacked on a 0.25%, 2.5 higher, 1074.67, made all-time highs again today. So when we look at this market, and then if we look elsewhere, we actually had gold. Gold was actually down today. It's up after hours, it looks like. We have the same was with silver. The dollar was up almost 1/5 of a percent or so. You know, no big movers here. Just a little back and forth. The market's down 4 days in a row, though. And today was kind of a telltale day. Today was a day where it looked like the market was going to try to go back the other way. At least that was the tell last night. If you remember looking at last night's numbers, we came underneath this bar, underneath the swing point highs bar. We tested both of them. That's the retest, regenerate sequence. Got back over them, closed over them, had less volume. That's a good thing. Tonight, we actually closed under both of them. Still less volume, but you're underneath them. You can't stay down there very long or you're going to keep going. And so tonight, the SPX is actually at kind of a critical spot. This thing is going to have to turn around pretty soon, or it's going to actually pull back deeper. Now, let's look and see what the Dow did, because the Dow was down even more. Let's see what it's getting into. So it's coming back into this wide price spread bar, 15,332. So it gets into it, closes over it, doesn't have the volume. So the Dow actually looks like it wants to try to do a turn here at support. Let me go back into the SPX. And the support zone here, we're going to be under it, so it's going to have to redraw. Looks like it will redraw to the bottom of this bar. So we'll probably get it at 1691 to 1689, and that is right where that gap is. So it looks to me like that's going to be the key area. It got as low as 94 today. I expect, given the way it traded today, that it's going to try to back in there and test it. So if it does, that will be kind of the key area to watch tomorrow. If we go over to the strength sectors, right? I mean, listed issues can't find a buyer, or at least they can't keep a buyer, we should say. They can find them, but they can't keep them. The NASDAQ just keeps hanging up here. So the NASDAQ, another doji. So we had a pullback yesterday. Inside, no, it's over and above and under, More volume though, so again, no real tell here on the NASDAQ other than the fact that it's strong. Let's see if the NDX gives us anything. NDX is actually an inside day with a little heavier volume. That also really gives us nothing to go on. But if we go over to the Russell actually gave us a signal again today. Now if you remember, the Russell gave us a signal last night in that it came in, tested, even though it had a little bit more volume, it tested into, I'm actually on the IXIC, no wonder I'm confused. Let me go back, get the Russell. Here we go. So here, the Russell came in last night and tested almost into the swing point high. Didn't quite hit it, which was also testing the breakout bar. The high on the breakout bar here was 1066.39. We got into 1063, so we tested into the breakout bar. The volume over there was 307, and we came into it with 312, so we actually had a little heavier volume. But we turned around and did a little hammer doji reversal, and that shot it back up today. And then what did it do? It goes over the top, tests the top, and fails. This one, the bar yesterday said that we were going to come back down here. The bar today says we're probably going to come back down here tomorrow. So the test failure at the highs tonight with a preceding day with higher volume gives me a pretty good indication that tomorrow we're going to come back and finally try to do that retest, regenerate off of these areas, and that will be the test tomorrow. And now, so the Russell is actually right now giving us the cleanest signals, and it's saying that tomorrow we ought to get some sort of a pullback. The SPX echoes that. Dow says we ought to try to hold here. Of course, the Dow's down more than anything else. NDX, NASDAQ, they say what the heck, let's just go higher. All right, let's look at the sectors and see if there's anything there. Now the sectors were starting to show us a change, right? They were trying to, the sectors were actually trying to work back the other way. They came back, and a number of them came back and did retest yesterday, or at least they looked like they were going to. So here's the IYT. That doesn't tell me anything other than we're probably going to test lower again. It's not a strong signal, but it looks to test lower. SMHs just hanging. These guys won't give it up. Yeah, that can hang longer. There's nothing to stop it yet. The XLB. So that tries to go up, does a doji. Boy, it sure looks like it's going to try to hold support, doesn't it? It's just got nothing now. One could say that that was nothing pushing back up into this bar, and that's probably the best signal right now. In other words, you push back into the 918 bar with this, you can't stay there, so you're going to have to test lower again. Let's look at the XLE. Now the XLE was trying to bounce off of support yesterday. Well, there just was no volume in anything today, was it? So this is going to continue to do a retest, regenerate off this lower. Well, actually, it had already done the retest, regenerate. So it's really just working into the support zone. The bottom of that support zone is this swing point highs, low, 83.06. And you know, it's starting to look like, you know, the not the Friday but the Thursday bar where we had, I mean the Wednesday bar where we had all the volume off the Fed news. That bar looks to be resistance now. We saw it on the XLB. We see it here on the XLE. You push into it, you can't stay into it, you pull back down. Let's see if that's true as we keep going through these. Of course, the XLF can't even find a bounce. This one closes down into that support zone we were talking about. So 20, I think, was the number off of this bar. We got right into it. 1999 doesn't have the volume. Okay, also getting into the bottom of this bar, which is 1995. And yeah, I mean, this is where this guy ought to try to turn and get a bounce. And that would be a big lift to the SPX, because the SPX has been getting hammered by this. This is down 4% now in 4 days. That's a pretty big beating. So XLF actually looks like it's going to try to get some sort of bounce tomorrow. XLI, been the strongest one lately. This one goes back into that Fed bar, stays into it. You can see how strong this sector is. That's the strongest one out there right now. XLK pulls back, nothing major. Looks like it's going to bounce from here. So you did two things. You came into the larger price bar here, volume wise, 32.28, right? Got into the bottom of it, couldn't stay in it, and then the bar on the way up, the breakout bar, you're doing a test on it again, 32.39. You close at 32.39, so you're right at it. That looks like it's going to try to bounce, and that may be Apple, because XLK is a big piece of Apple, and Apple actually held this gap again today. XLP just keeps coming down. Looks like the financials just caving. And volume's pretty heavy. And there's just nothing here to tell me it's going to stop yet. XLU. That one doesn't look nearly as bad. That one can bounce. XLV. So 4 days down on this one. So the bottom of the retest regen bar, well, it actually had already done it, so it's really just support at this point. You really don't have any good support. There's just been no volume here. Look at this thing. Last volume was over here. That's going to fall off tomorrow, which is going to change the whole picture. You're going to get a support zone right in here tomorrow, right around 50, off that swing point high. So again, there's nothing here to tell you this thing's done going down, and it still can come back deeper. XLY, so you can see again tonight, unlike last night, we actually had a pretty decent setup to try to bounce last night. Tonight we don't. Tonight it's much more mixed. You got negative signals on 2 of the 5 indexes. You got a somewhat bounce positive on the Dow. You got either way on the Nasdaq, but Nasdaq and NDX, but they're strong. Then you come down to the sectors. So far I've seen 2, 3, 4 to 5 of these want to trade lower, and a couple of them want to bounce. So XLI, XLK were the only ones that really look strong, and the XLY really nothing here on the way back up. So this one also is just barely hanging on to that that Wednesday bar, 60.54. Yeah, just hanging on. So this one can go either way as well. Now, I don't want to sound too negative, because a retrace, and you can see it on this chart, you can see it on all of them. A retrace here, even if it came down as deep as this area, for example, 59, that's still an ABCD up, right? If it goes back up again, right? I mean, you can set up it just wouldn't be as good a one. Now, if they turn up here somewhere, they're going to be, a lot of them are going to try to finish off ABCD structures, bullish ones that still are in play in a number of these, or set up ABCD structures on the way up, bullish ones. So, I don't want to sound too negative. At the same time, it's hard to get all that excited about what I'm seeing today. Today was not as positive as it could have been. I mean, it could have been a lot more positive than we saw. Just a decent close would have made a positive day, but you couldn't get it. They sold it down right at the end of the day. And if I pop over into Apple held that island reversal we were talking about. It's still holding on, so Apple can actually shoot up again. But I came over here to show you the SPX and pull it in on an intraday, and you can see what happened, right? You get a nice push up this morning, right? You came down, you retested lows this morning is what you did. You went nice big push up, held, and then finally right here at the end of the day, they made one last push back up into this area, and then just gave it up and all the way down. So, if it had held up in here, it would have been a nice day, but it didn't, right? Buyers gave it up. And although it's not, in the world or anything, it's a negative. And you really can't paint it any other way. It's a negative. Okay? Let's look at the Ox market real quick and see. I know that bonds were strong again today. I've been telling y'all for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know what it's been, that bonds want to go higher. And today they're going after that swing point. Looks like they got it, 106.68. They close at 106.83, so they're over it. It's bullish. It's confirmed bullish. Confirmed sideways because it was in a bearish trend. And it looks to me like it's going to go after the top of this bar and that swing point high next. That was the original target I've talked about. And I don't know that it will do it tomorrow, but that looks to be still the target, right? So this high, and we're back on the July 8th, the high here at the 31st and the high on the 13th of August. Those are the highs. They're all up there clustered in the same area. I would think that's where it's going to find some, profit taking. And if it comes down and it sets up another situation just like it has, it's going to climb higher. And bonds going up means interest rates are going down, and that's a good thing for the markets. Should be. So we'll see if it plays out that way. Now, sometimes it's not a good thing in that fear is driving everybody to bonds, but I don't think it's fear driving folks to bonds right now. So that's why I do say it's good. So the dollar was up a little bit today. Let's see what it did. It's got nothing. There's no volume here. This thing's just going to go up, do a retest, regen, and regenerate lower. And the FXE is probably going to pull back to a support zone and do the exact opposite. You can see it's coming back with nothing. Let's go look at gold and silver, because gold pushed up today. It was down kind of big this morning, caught a little bounce, no volume. So I don't see anything special there other than a bounce. And let's see about silver. And recognize it's still inside this big bar. Let's talk about this big bar, and we can do it here or on gold, either one. It's the same thing. When you get wide price spread bars and you don't get an escalation away from them, right? And in this case you have two. You have one over here and you have one over here. That tends to set up a range trade. In other words, it makes it very hard to break it down, and it makes it very hard to break it out. And I would think that you're probably going to see that sort of thing set up on this gold and silver market for a while. Those are going to be magnets. They're going to hold the prices in this range for a while, and you're probably just not going to be able to escape it. So, maybe you get to the bottom and a little bit out of it, or you get to the top a little bit out of it. But these are going to be, areas that are going to hold it for a while, and they're on the daily time frame, so it's going to hold on the daily time frame. If you had a big wide one on the weekly, it'd be the same sort of thing, but the ones on the weekly aren't that big yet. And so when you have that kind of situation, you have to expect, because you weren't able to escalate away, or if you were coming down, you weren't able to escalate away on the downside, you expect that to hold price for a while, and I expect that's what you'll see. And then, another week or two out, something like that, 3 weeks out, when you get a break of that area, then it will have some significance to it. I haven't looked at oil and natural gas in a while. I'm going to take a quick peek. Wow, oil's all the way down here, huh? Doing an ABCD down, and it just finished another one. So you had an A here, B there, C there. You pretty much finished it on that one. Then you go up A, B, C here, finished it again. So you're down testing a swing point low, and you held, and you have a little bit heavier volume. You can get a bounce tomorrow, but you can come right back and try to break it again probably. Let's see what the RJA, the ag, oh, what a mess. Okay, now let's look at this. Here's the weekly. Remember how I was talking about on gold, not on gold, but on the bonds. You had a long, steady trend down, right? And then all of a sudden, you didn't do it on the bottom bar, but after that, you found buyers, right? They come in, they juice this thing. Okay, that's how turns take place. Now, this thing's probably going to drift all the way back down here and test it again, just like bonds did. And that test is going to be, if you go back to the daily, that test is going to be on this big bar here. That's the bar. And so, if you can drift all the way back down into the bottom of this bar, you don't have to risk much, and you can set up a pretty good trade. And that's the kinds of trades you look for with higher probabilities. So, because I happen to see it while I'm sitting there looking at it, I just tell you about it. Let me go look at the UNL. Oh my, that one caught heck yesterday, huh? And then right back the other way today. That's almost like a takeaway bar. So, yeah, I'm going to pull over to the weekly on this one as well. Remember, the weekly, when we were way up here, I was talking about that it was probably going to come down and test, and I forget, I believe it was the top of this bar I was talking about at the time. And then as we got into it, it became obvious it was going to try to get the bottom of it. Well, it just did, right? Then you get a nice big spike back up to the top of this one, you fell. And then you spike all the way down, looks like you're going to go to the bottom, and then they take it away and head back the other way today. Folks, this thing is putting in a slow bottom, and it is a miserably slow bottom because on the monthly, this is your monthly, this thing has been down for months and months, years actually, and it's just slowly putting in the bottom. But there's such a supply overhang in nat gas, given the shell fracking, that it takes forever, and it probably is going to play out for a long time. But if it does build out a base here, eventually it will take off. A quick look at JJC, and then I'll take a couple of your questions. There's nothing there. And let me see junk bonds. I assume junk bonds are still trying to go up. Yeah, they made a nice spike up, fading back in. So not bad. And they're mimicking equities actually. So, all right, let's see what kind of questions we got here. So HMIN, the Chinese hotel chain. Feedy says he bought this thing. He wants to make a bunch of money. Let's go see what it looks like. HMIN. Okay. Well, that's the spot, Feedy. You know, if you look at it there and if you look at it on the weekly, it's the same thing, right? Big bar up, you got another bar over here. That's the area on the weekly that you ought to try to find some support. You can see it clearly on the daily. You know, you just got to respect that area and don't let it get too deep on you if it starts pulling back deeper. But yeah, that's the area. Now, one thing I would point out to you, and this is working against you, and is what's pulling this thing back. This is a swing point high. We broke over it on this bar. Never retested. Right? Now you're coming back to retest it. Is it more than 6 bars? No, it's not. Within 6 bars on the weekly. That means it can get to the bottom of it. The bottom of that bar is 30.96. Okay, so that's hanging out there as a possible pullback area. If you look over here, you don't see anything that tells you 30.96 is in play, right? I mean, is there anything here? I guess that the bottom of that's 31.70, but where do you get 30.96? There is no such thing on this chart. That's why you have to look at multiple time frames. And actually, if you go over and you look at the monthly, you're going to see the same thing. Here's the monthly. You got a swing point high here. You break over it here, right? You're coming back on a fast retrace to test it. The low on that one's 28.85. In other words, on a monthly, it could trade to 28.85 and still be fine as well. So you can see across your 3 time frames, you get different numbers. And so if you're playing this thing and you're at 31, right, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to trade it back to 25? I mean 28.5 or something, or 28.30. Am I willing to take that kind of heat? That's $3. That's 10%. Are you willing to take 10% hit? If not, you got to play it on this time frame. But what does that do? That opens up the probabilities that you have a higher probability that you're going to get washed out of this thing and there would be nothing wrong with it. Do you follow what I'm saying? In other words, on the weekly, there would be nothing wrong with it on the weekly. On the monthly, it'd still be nothing wrong at 28.85. So that's the sort of thing you have to pick out when you're looking at these things. You really have to tell yourself, okay, that's a little less high probability trade. It's not as high as I thought, because on the longer term time frames, they can pull back farther and still nothing be wrong with them. Okay, they're just doing their normal test. And so when you look at it that way, it kind of changes your perspective just a little bit. Let's look, we got another question here on Sohu. Let's see, this is the Chinese internet. May not be ideal, but what are your overall impressions? Well, let's see here. Okay, so you pull back on not much volume. I'm assuming there must have been earnings or something here, given the volume spike and the price spike. Okay, so you have the same thing here that you had in that last one with HMIN, in that you broke a swing point high and you're coming back to try to do a retest regen off of it. That high 70.63, you didn't quite get to it yet. So if it comes into this, okay, the bar that broke out is this bar. So you could get as deep as 68.30 and still just be testing, right? And actually you get as low as 67.56. That's the bottom of the retest regen. So if you're trading this thing and you see your volume on this one still high at 66.95, you've got to put your stop that deep. Okay, so let's just say 66.50 for a round number. We're trading at 72.50 roughly. So you're going to have to risk $6 on a 72. That's about 8%. How far can you gain? Well, you can certainly get back to the top. Although if you notice, you went over the highs with less volume. So you didn't leave high volume at the highs. That would have been better. So it doesn't have to go back up there, but it probably will before it's over, which is 76. So you got a $4 up, $6 down. It just doesn't make sense yet. It's got to come in deeper. You got to target this area, right? And if it gives it to you, that's one thing. If it doesn't, well, you just have to keep looking, because you can't chase trades like that. Because that's the way I'd look at that one. If I pull it over real quick and look on the weekly, yeah, I don't see anything different there. I mean, it looks fine. It looks like a good stock. You just got to time it is the problem. Another question on GDX. We looked at it yesterday. I actually bought GDX this morning. It set up nicely for a trade. We bought it near the lows this morning. I told everybody in the trading room to, I was going to take a trade in it. I didn't get as much out of it as I was wanting, and I dumped it. Made my money, got out. You did do an under-over 2-bar reversal. I wouldn't call it that extended, although it's a pretty decent move to the downside. But it's not extended enough to make me that excited about it, right? But it is 2 bars. You went under, back over, less volume. That's good. And let me see, you were coming into anything of significance? Not really. So, yeah, I don't get that excited about what I see here. Let me look at the weekly and see if it looks any different, because it was trying to get into this bar. 24.66. Yeah, we got into it finally. So we're doing 104. We're 2 days in, right? That did 231. 104 divided by 2 gives you about 52 times 5. It gives you about 250. So you can see your volume is actually expanding as you're coming back. Okay, that's not a good thing. So that volume would actually have to taper off the rest of the week to make it more interesting. So right now, I still think it's a no-go. It sure is trying to break a B point of an ABCD down as well. Well, that would be a large one too. 31, 35. It's about 630 onto that. Gets you about 22.5. Takes you right down into that last support zone. 22.5. If I go back over, takes you right down deep into this bar, almost to the bottom. So you can see if this plays out and continues, you really got to be careful here. It's not quite ready yet. So don't. If you're trading it, you got to trade it for an intraday trade, and you got to get your money and get out. Because right now, it's still not giving it to you. You got a 2-bar reversal. It may set up again tomorrow for another bounce, but it's just hard to see it doing more than a bounce right now. Came into the 628 bar. Yeah, that was the bar I think that we were looking at before. Although that bar's faded off my chart now. Yes, it did, but it looks to me like it's not quite ready yet. All right, so tomorrow, a little disappointing today. It's not the end of the world. Tomorrow's Wednesday. You got GDP tomorrow. And I don't know if there's more Fed speak. I know there's more this week. I don't think there is any tomorrow. GDP would be the focus tomorrow. End of the week, you're going to have PMI numbers out of Japan, out of China. In the weekend, it's going to set up Monday's play. You also got the budget talks going on, and the fact that they're trying to you know, go to the wire again like they usually do. So, you know, I think the pressure is going to still be out here. I told you Sunday I thought this week was going to be a struggle, and today actually showed that it is going to be a struggle, and I suspect that that's going to be true the rest of the week. So just hang tight. Don't try to make a big run out of things. You know, you don't load up when you don't have a great position. Lennar, yeah, it didn't do anything really. So I mean, that didn't do anything. I know they had it, and I saw the home builders jumping today, and you know they're interest rate sensitive, and they're going to try to pop, but they're really not getting much out of this yet. I wouldn't get too excited about here either yet. I think it's just going to be a struggle this week. All right, folks, have yourself a great one. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll wrap up the week for me, and we'll see what this market wants to give us. Have yourself a good one. Take care. I'll see you next time. Until then, I'm L.A. Little, and this is and was your daily TA wrap. Good night, folks.